In the spotlight more and more lately are examples of resellers, or considered by some scalpers, dragging hobbies through the mud. The most frequent one has been Pokemon cards, and I myself don't care much about Pokemon cards, but as someone who does enjoy collecting in a different ballpark, I can understand how frustrating people like this can make hobbies. Because collecting older or retro video games has its fair share of price issues and accessibility, although a bit differently because those games are literally not being made anymore, while things like the Pokemon cards are just in low supply currently. It's frustrating that what is to some people a fun pastime or hobby, others only see dollar signs, and they seek to ruin the good nature and enjoyment of a hobby for their own personal gains. There's obviously some fault on the people willing to then cave into the scalpers and pay their outrageous prices, probably because of impatience or something else. I think that just gets enhanced by fear of missing out. If I don't buy it now, someone else will, and will there be another opportunity? So I guess it's a little bit broader of a question. Are scalpers or resellers and collectors potentially ruining hobbies? Now, I include collectors loosely because I feel there's some reasons they can be to blame, but it isn't really for anything wicked or in that sort. And one actually was brought up to me from my cousin who, instead of engaging in a conversation with me, felt the need to just dunk on me for not playing a chunk of the games I collect. Dick. Anyways, which is the point I'll mention briefly. If you collect something like video games, you enjoy the hobby, but some may say you don't fully enjoy it if you aren't playing them too. Now, I try to buy games I think I'll play or look interesting, and sometimes they aren't what I was hoping they'd be, and they sit on the shelf. But I ain't gonna resell. I'd rather they just remain in the collection, or sometimes I just don't feel like getting to them at that time and they sit in the backlog and look pretty on the shelf for a while. Which the point he was trying to make was, what if I got that copy and don't play it? Oh, it seems like an insult to the people who developed the game and, spent all that time on it, yada yada. Or other people that would have bought it over me and they actually played it. Oh, it could be disingenuous or, insulting to them. Now, I get the sort of sentiment behind that, but at the end of the day, if you engage in a hobby and find any sort of joy from it, and it doesn't exploit anyone, then who cares how you do it? That's my rebuttal to that. And then, as I said earlier, the other fault of the collectors is caving into the scalpers and paying their ludicrous price, because then that just reinforces their methods ever so slightly more, and on it goes. Again, I get it from a fear of missing out standpoint because I've been on both sides of the turnout. Say one time I bought a Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess copy for the GameCube that I saw for, at the time, $90. And it's because I saw the listing was $10 cheaper than all the others at that time. It is now currently for complete in box at a minimum of $150. And then say another time, I bought Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door, also for GameCube, and I bought it for $140, which I think close to 2 years later, the Switch port came out and that shit dropped to a minimum of $40 for complete in box. And that seller doesn't care now. He made his money while the iron was hot and I fed it. So I understand the mentality behind caving sometimes, at least for retro games. But now in a more modern setting, now I want to get a physical copy of that Claire Obstruct, whatever, Expedition 33, and it's going for a minimum of $80. It's a $50 game. It was a low print, so with little supply, scalpers ate it up, they do what they do best, and they're trying to profit. Now, I'm not going to cave on this one, especially since there will almost certainly eventually be more prints and time for the price to drop on the secondary markets. So it comes down to a few factors like the timing, financial situation of the individual, supply, etc. So I can say there are times the collectors may be at fault, but I'd say they are still the victims. But they certainly don't help themselves by then, in certain situations, helping the scalpers, resellers, whatever have you, by then purchasing their overpriced stock. But let's not get misdirected. You can't talk about the casualties without talking about the perpetrator. Scalpers, resellers, whatever. Remember, people back then, in good old 2020, buying out toilet paper and hand sanitizer. Those are the worst of the worst when you do it in a global crisis on essential goods. And now I'm not saying these hobby scalpers are at the same caliber, but it's still scummy nonetheless to infringe on an interest primarily meant for kids, being Pokemon cards, the one I'm getting to, and put their fun behind an overinflated paywall because you can't get a normal job or normal side hustle. Oftentimes, these kids don't even want an enormous booster box or tin. They just want a pack or two. They're like, oh, we're going to the store with mom or pop, and I wanna see, maybe they'll buy me this. And I've heard about this new Pokemon pack coming up. I'd like to get that. Well, sorry, little Timmy. It's either not on the shelf or, there's grown adults waiting in line for a vending machine, hoping to buy them all out before you can get the chance. And it's just, they want a pack or two, and they can't even do that anymore without spending 5 times the amount, like I said, because grown adults have to clear shelves and camp out at vending machines and GameStops to rip them all for themselves and their own gain. And it's even more sad when they then cause verbal and even physical confrontations over this shit, like this recent example.
My fucking chair, dog. Go get my fucking chair, dog. You didn't get my chair, dog. You are. Well, fuck you. You're a fucking...
Oh, shit.
Fuck you, that's it.
Oh, shit.
Fuck you, dog. Go get your fucking chair, that's it. Fuck you, dog.
Yeah.
What the fuck, bro?
I think there's just 2 people that kind of came up. They were really drunk. They pulled up with the chair. And so he's like getting really angry and he's threatening people right now.
So now not only are they making it inaccessible and hyper expensive, they're now making it a flat out risk to people's safety and well-being over children's trading cards. What a shame and absolute embarrassment. Now, again, I know it's primarily for children, and it's fine for adults, obviously still indulge too, because, there are things around now that when we ourselves were kids, weren't in a position to take part in, and now with age and our own money we can. And that's where a collector sits, someone who just wants to reminisce or do now what they couldn't when they were younger. They can still engage in the same activity that they would have liked to when they were younger, just with the time and money or whatever have you now. And speaking of, they can also engage in the same activity as resellers while being collectors and gamers themselves, don't get me wrong. But the honest to goodness individual there for the hobby, for the fun, that's what it's all about. And I think the publicity these hobbies get now from social media is definitely a factor too. Like all these card opening channels or video game resellers giving these things publicity will invoke a larger audience, which is nice to unite people with similar interests, But the con is that it risks making it more pricey. I follow certain ones, like my GOAT, Cody with a K. We await your return, King. He's entertaining as hell. And sorry, I'm glazing, I know. Anyways, and then I watch others too. I watch like Chase After the Right Price. Very entertaining content. But obviously you watch and see at the end of the day, they're still resellers. That's their business. So you like watching to see all these retro games and fun memories of games you had as a kid and all that. And then you realize, oh, they have these large tubs of games that they somehow got for cheap and are going to be sold at the sometimes super high secondary market price. Now, sometimes work is put in, like they go on journeys to conventions and they haggle, or they go to garage sales and such around neighborhoods for like a chunk of a day sometimes. So I know that if you aren't going to do that stuff yourself, work for a cheaper price, then you can't complain too much about paying more for the convenience of not tracking it down yourself. I can admit that. But nobody is going to sit here and say they're okay with some games being $400 just because they're old with limited prints and never got any modern ports. It just sucks. I mean, overall, a lot of these cons show that, yeah, scalpers and resellers, influencers too, are ruining a lot of hobbies, and you can maybe interchange ruining with different synonyms or whatever have you, maybe it's not always ruining, blah, blah. And yeah, the resellers can sometimes, depending on the hobby and the circumstances, at least provide entry, albeit expensive. So that part does need to be said, but it can come with exploitation and sometimes even a risk of your well-being. So that's how I felt about this topic, at least what I was able to put into words. Again, as always, I appreciate you hanging out for a little. And, you know, now how about we talk about it in the comments if you'd like. You know, I get a lot of enjoyment out of engaging with the different opinions everyone's got to share. And after that, I look forward to seeing you again next time.